Welcome back to Alpha Mama 2022. We are still here, we are still going. We're trying to meet our targets of weekly podcasts when we can. Well, today we are sort of on time, so I'm really proud about that. And we are talking about vision today. So before we get started, who is Alpha Mama and what are we all about? Alpha Mama brings you the lowdown on books that change your lives in the self-development space. We do the reading and research so you can sit back, listen and take the steps to live your best life and move towards a grounded life that reflects your authentic self. Growing up, I didn't feel like I had a lot of great guidance. The lack of guidance in my own life led me to make choices that accumulated in me hitting rock bottom by the age of 30. I felt like I had no one to turn to, and that's when I turned to books and researching how to live my best life. Fast forward almost a decade, and I have experienced total transformation. At Alpha Mama, we believe it doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. The only thing that you need to succeed at your life is the belief that you can and the commitment to carrying through with backing yourself. So welcome back to the show this week. I'm really excited to have you on board. And what we are talking about this week is creating a vision for your life. So if you have been with us before or tuned in the past, we tend to go through what I think are 3 key areas to building the life of your dreams, which is what Alpha Mama's all about. And those include creating a vision and having a really, really solid vision. And that comes from self-awareness and understanding who you are, where you're going and what you want in your life. And then self-discipline, so cultivating self-discipline. How do we do that? How do we stay the course? And then finally looking at resources and abundance. So how do we create abundance mindset? How do we cultivate and grow resources in our life and create financial stability and security? So we just completed a sort of wild vision, wild finance sort of realm because we had been on the road for a while. And, you know, now we're back home, we're back into it, though I am still very in love with the wild, everything wild. So I'm really excited about sharing the book that we're talking about today that is around creating a vision. Now, personally, I'm a little bit of an innovator, so I have a legal background and I'm really obsessed with innovating in the legal space and creating new projects and ways of delivering services online to people. And so as you can imagine, I'm interested in other like academics that are into innovation. And I've actually got a hardcover today because often I listen to audio books, but I decided to purchase this, and I don't know that you can get it online, but you can do online courses for it. So today's book is called Designing Your Life, How to Build a Well-Lived Joyful Life, and it's by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. So who are these people? Bill Burnett and Dave Evans are both academics. They're lecturers at Stanford University. So I believe one of them has like an engineering background and the other one, they're both sort of engineers and designers. And they've, you know, worked in Silicon Valley and they're really abreast of and have a deep understanding of design thinking, and they actually teach a course at Stanford University to almost all of their students there at the course, at the university. So it started off with like the design thinking space students, and now it's spread to the whole university, and basically it's an elective where people think about what they're going to do with the rest of their life, which is really cool. And they apply design thinking principles and innovative principles to life planning, which personally I think is brilliant, because it isn't a rigid plan, and it doesn't lock you into a narrative. Design thinking isn't about locking you into some narrative, like, you know, we have our boy meets girl, they get married, and, you know, they have careers and they have children, they buy the house, 2.5 children, etc., and then they do their careers, retire and die, whatever, you know. Instead, what the book invites you to do is, and that's something that designers love, they love problems, is to take your problems and use them as fodder and fuel in your life, and something exciting to create a new fantastic life for yourself. So some of the tips that they suggest in their book, so 5 mindsets you are going to learn in order to design your life are curiosity, bias to action, reframing, awareness, and what does that say? Radical collaboration, my bad. Okay, so being curious, being open to new things, being open to getting outside of your comfort zone, but also being curious about your problems. So, and being curious about who you are and being open to learning who you are, trying stuff. So having a bias to action, actually throwing yourself into the deep end. Designers try things, right? Reframing your problems, so working on getting unstuck. So whenever you say I can't or something's negative, reframing that into how do I move through this and move beyond it, and then understanding that it's a process. So that's like sort of awareness, you know. Life is a process, it's not a destination, and I think a lot of us find as we get older that the joy is really in the process, and that's where we find our happiness, and that's where we find our love, you know, and our passion. And then radical collaboration, asking for help. So this is what the book is all about, and here are some really great examples. So I love, they've got a section called wayfinding, which is really great because I'm obsessed with wayfinding and the notion of Polynesian or nautical wayfinding in terms of not always or knowing your destination, so having the vision, but then not always knowing how you're going to get there, but staying focused on the vision and then opening yourself up to the journey of how you get to that place, you know, and not being too locked into anything. The other great thing that they have throughout this book is sort of looking at how we can reframe our dysfunctional beliefs. So I'm just going to give you an example from say page 42 of how you might reframe something. So a dysfunctional belief someone might have is work is not supposed to be enjoyable, that's why they call it work. Reframe: enjoyment is a guide to finding the right work for you. Here's another one: dysfunctional belief, I'm stuck. Reframe: I'm never stuck, because I can always generate a lot of ideas. Dysfunctional belief, I have to find the one right idea. Reframe, I need a lot of ideas so that I can explore any number of possibilities for my future. So if you're a bit sciencey or you like to have a bit of a process, using something like this book is a great tool, I suppose, for going through a step-by-step process in terms of design thinking. And a great place, so with design thinking, where do you start? You start where you are right now. So this is very much like wayfinding. You just start where you are and you don't worry about like, okay, I should be here or I should be there in my life right now. You just focus on, okay, this is where I am, complete acceptance. And a designer approach is to have a beginner mindset. And it's funny, like obviously I've just mentioned I work in the legal industry. There can be a tendency for people sometimes when we've, had an education or you've become really good at a certain job in your career, which is great. But when we think like we know everything about something, then often we don't know, because no one knows everything about any topic. And then you might miss a really amazing opportunity, or you might miss a new possibility, an area of innovation. Whereas if you have a beginner's mindset and you're always learning and being curious about everything around you, then you're opening yourself up to opportunities, and you're also removing, I guess the other really big benefit of a beginner's mindset is that you're breaking down your assumptions and your subconscious programming around what you think something's meant to be, which I think is really interesting. Like I'll give you a good example with design thinking. And I'm just going off memory here. I heard this story where basically there was this building and they had a lot of complaints. It was a hotel, and they had a lot of complaints about how slow the lift was. And so they needed to find an innovative way to fix the problem. And it was something as simple as they were looking at all these options in terms of getting a new, faster lift, and that was going to cost like $1 million or $500,000 or something, and it was really, really expensive. And then they had designers or planners come in and think about the problem, and they spoke to the people who use the lift and they listened to all their frustrations. And I think they realised that what they really needed was just something to distract them while they waited for the lift. And so it ended up being resolved because they put like a mirror. They either put a clock or a mirror. I think they put a mirror in next to the lift, and then that solved the problem because people could look at themselves while they were waiting for the lift, or make sure that they looked nice for the day or something like that. I don't know. So then from first creating the beginner's mindset and being at peace with where you're at, the next step that they put out there is building a compass. So looking at reflecting, writing down a reflection or keeping a reflective journal on who you are, what you believe, and what you're doing in your life. And then looking at things like reflecting on what's your current perception of work. Why do we work? What's work for? What does work mean to you? And that might sound a little bit naff at first, but when you think about it, what the purpose of those questions is to try and get to the core of what your underlying assumptions and belief about life are, and what your value system is around work, around life view. Why are we here? What's the meaning or purpose of life? What is the relationship between the individual and others all about? Where do family, country, and the rest of the world fit in? So getting you to kind of think about your life view, your work view, and then trying to integrate those two views. So where does your life view and your work view cross-reference, and where do they really differ? And then finding a sort of, I guess, a guidepost, because really designing a really good life, you know, according to this book, is about really knowing your customer, or knowing your audience, which is yourself in this case. And so having a deep sense of self-awareness or understanding of who you are, what drives you, what makes you tick, and why you do the things you do. And then looking at then opportunities, so opening yourself up to engaging with what kind of opportunities give you the energy levels that you want in your life, or what sort of purpose do you need to be fulfilling in your life, and then what are the multiple opportunities for you to do that. And I really like as well, they sort of suggest in this, instead of just designing a life, you could design multiple lives. So as just a thought exercise, you know, this idea that you could give yourself multiple pathways of, okay, I know who I am, I know what I want, and I realize that there are multiple types of jobs or multiple types of lifestyles that could meet those needs, and opening yourself up to new possibilities around what could be an amazing life for you and what would give you deep joy in your life. So yeah, I think I like this one as well. So radical collaboration, identifying who your team is. So who are the people that support you? Who are the participants in your life? Who are people who are intimate to you? Who are the people that are mentors? And what kind of rules and roles do people play in your life? So, you know, they've got their rules in Stanford are respectful, confidential, participative, and generative, so constructive and not skeptical or judging. So what kind of people do you have around you, and are they the right team for you? And what kind of rules do you need in place in your life to make sure that you're getting the best feedback you can from the people around you that support you? And then I guess, you know, giving things a go. So putting yourself out there and upskilling if you need to. So here's another really great space. So looking at choosing happiness. So what is the design process? Design thinking process starts with gathering and creating, and then narrowing down. So often when we gather, we like just throw ideas out there. So you might use post-it notes and throw lots of ideas about, like, what do I love? What gives me joy? What am I passionate about? What are my interest areas? And if you put each one on a different post-it note, and then what you can do is like create a big wall on your wall, you know, of post-it notes, and then kind of start clustering them. So do any of those things kind of go together, and is there a theme going on about who you are and what you're all about? And then sort of narrowing it down and choosing like more solid pathways and more solid understanding of what that means about you, or what gives you deep joy in your life. And then once you have done that, then just choosing a pathway. One thing, I mean, they've said, okay, throw lots of ideas out there, but one thing that they do say, actually, and it's in one of their TED Talks, is talking about not having too many choices. You know, giving one thing a go can really lead to great happiness. And when you have too many choices, or you allow yourself too many choices, and you don't make a confident leap or jump in a certain direction, you can start doubting yourself and losing your self-confidence, and losing your ability to find joy when you've got too many options. So anyway, that is basically just a really brief overview of Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. So it's a pretty interesting book, and if you're wanting something a little bit left of field, and you know, you want to you're in a place, you're feeling a bit stuck, or you just want to really follow your heart and move into a space where you're creating a really powerful vision for yourself, something like this is a great starting point for having a process to do that with. Now, in the blog this week, so there is a workbook with this, but in the blog this week, I'll put the links to not only where you can get the book from, but they actually have some talks online, and they also have some short online courses that you can do. So I do think it's really an interesting idea. It's, you know, they say New York bestseller. Well, I did get the accompanying workbook where you can write down all your dreams and, you know, engage with measuring yourself and cultivating self-awareness through a sort of structured process, because I was just so excited about these design innovators. And I think the key to all this is, in a world where everything is constantly fluctuating, I personally feel like what I really need is like a wayfinding roadmap for how to navigate my way through life successfully, rather than being too attached to, you know, having the one pathway or the solid job. You know, we just live in a world that's just so hectic now, and things are constantly changing, and innovation is, you know, tenfold, and technology is tenfold, and then on top of that we've got global, you know, environmental crisis and health emergencies and war, and then economic crisis, and we're dealing with a lot of stuff everywhere. So having some simple processes where you can kind of ground yourself and come back into finding out who you are, what gives you joy, and even, you know, just starting a very simple roadmap for self-awareness, so that you can make really great choices when you're being constantly bombarded by information overload in today's world. So I hope you enjoyed the podcast this week. We will be back next week, and we'll be talking about cultivating discipline once you've got your vision. So stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you for joining us. Subscribe, check out. We don't have any courses at the moment, but we have courses coming very soon. So watch this space. In the next 3 months, we're going to have a series of just little short courses around budgeting, creating a vision, and cultivating self-discipline. So keep an eye out for those on the website, and we'll catch you next time. Over and out.